Welcome, I'm Tony Horn. I'm an author, a teacher, a trainer. I've written several books. One of the books I wrote is entitled The 3 R's, and today we're going to talk about a return to peace. You know, humanity today is at a point where they're looking for a change. They know what they don't want, but they're not sure what they do want, what to replace it with. Wouldn't it be exciting if we could be part of a movement to actually change the direction of humanity and go towards a more natural, more peaceful world? Let's understand what we mean when we say peace. Peace is not sitting in front of your 51-inch flat-screen TV with a bowl of popcorn, although that might be comfortable. But peace for any species is when they're living in 100% harmony with their design. So let's take the example of a mountain gorilla, and sadly there's only a few hundred of those left. But every remaining mountain gorilla, if we could go out in the jungle and observe them, they're living in harmony with their design. They're living in their groups the way they were designed, and they'll live that way until the last mountain gorilla, disappears and is no more. Eckhart Tolle, in his book, The Power of Now, talks about that same way of living in the now for humans. We have a baseline, and does that mean there's not strife in our life, we're not threatened, we don't have terrible storms or natural disasters? No, of course not. Life is about those things, but once we've recovered from those, we return back to that level playing field of peace. And living in chronic fear and stress, I know many of us know what that's like, and we never have peace when we're living that way. So we need to move towards the direction of humans living in peace. Do we have peace today? I'm asking you as viewers, do you feel peaceful? I mean, in many parts of the world, a stray bullet or an intentional one can wreak havoc on a family. But here in the United States, just for example, did you know that suicide is the second greatest killer of youth in the United States? So here in this country, where we pride ourselves on being relatively safe and peaceful and informed and whatever, our children are killing themselves in record numbers. That doesn't get, the picture I get from that is not a picture of peace. So we certainly need to look at the kind of society we have and what we're doing and ask ourselves some hard questions. We had peace, I'm speaking about humans now, we had peace for almost 3 million years. We lost it or began giving it away in an event about 20 to 40,000 years ago. And if we choose, and if we have the integrity and courage, we can choose to take that peace back. Is life today really that bad? You might be asking yourself, well, gosh, I've got digital computers, and we have civilization and society, and we can put a person on the moon and cure diseases and all that sort of thing. And yes, that is absolutely true, we do. But we've also got this rampant worldwide rush to materialism. It's almost become an addiction, and it's infecting really every developed and developing country in the world. We have drug addiction. We talked about suicide. We have a garbage dump the size of Texas floating in our ocean. The earth gave us life in the first place, and it's kind of our thank you to the earth that, we dump our garbage into the oceans. So, I mean, there's plenty of things going on here that are working against humanity, working against the rest of life on earth. And so we just have to ask ourselves, can we keep going in the direction we're going? One thing that humans are struggling with is drastic overpopulation. And drastic overpopulation is not the sign of a healthy species, but of a sick one. Healthy species limit their numbers so that they and those to follow have resources and food and every opportunity to succeed in their lives. Rampant overpopulation is more indicative of blights, pestilences, plagues, viruses, cancers. That's where we see rampant overpopulation. We've got 7 billion people on the earth today on a planet that can support maybe 1.5 billion. We're going from 7 billion to 10 to 11 billion in the next few decades, and that's in developing countries where people are going to be hungry and needing resources. And, so I think most everybody in the world realizes that we're going in a direction that we just can't keep going in. So there are certainly things that need to be changed and things that we need to do differently. Let's go back 2.3 million years. Lucy, Australopithecus, a young woman standing on earth on 2 feet, just like you and me, skeleton, looked identical to yours and mine, walking around, raising her children, getting food. They didn't have agriculture. These were hunter-gatherers, doing what she had to do. And 2.3 million years of that is our rich and varied history that's led up to the life that we have today. And we should revere and respect those early pre-humans for the millions of years that have led up to us, because they're our ancestors, just as much as the woolly mammoth or the mastodon is the predecessor to the elephant. And any child knows that. You just look at them. Or the saber-toothed tiger that you find over in the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles is the predecessor to the modern tiger. It doesn't take a scientist to know that. You can just look. And by seeing Lucy 2.3 million years ago, you know right away that that's a predecessor of ours. And that is our true history. Yet what are we telling our kids in the classroom? Oh, well, those are some, we don't know what those are, but our history goes back 5,000 years, and then we talk about Genghis Khan and Julius Caesar and Napoleon Bonaparte and George Washington and Stalin and Mao Zedong, and we're telling our children that that's our history. Folks, this is an unfortunate thing to say, but we're teaching our children a lie. That is not our history. The history we're teaching our children in all of their formative years in their classroom is not the history of humans, but we're actually teaching them a lie. Children, beautiful children, are born with this sense of life, the promise, the passion of it. Then they listen to their well-meaning parents, and I'm a parent myself, so I'm speaking about myself. They listen to their well-meaning parents and society and the teachers telling them something else, and they have to juggle those two. They want to please us, they want to make us happy, but their heart says something else, and we have a word for that. It's called the generation gap. Humans are the only ones that have that. It's the difference between what they know in their hearts to be true and what society is telling them. 20 to 40,000 years ago, an event happened in human development that we need to look at very closely, and that event was when humans became self-aware. The picture we like to paint about that is that here's a pool, and this early human looks in the pool and sees their reflection, and they say, oh, wait a minute, I'm an individual. I can have my own thoughts, and I can have my own things. And then, of course, in the next thought, they realize, oh, wait a minute, but all my neighbors and other people, they're doing that too. So when we became self-aware, some pretty awful things happened. We took on all the burdens that we deal with today, all the burdens of modern psychology. We could remember what happened 2, 3, 5, 10 years ago. We could project into the future. Gosh, if we don't do this, that, and the other thing, that could happen again, and we might have another one of those storms. The tribe over the next hill may come over and kill all of our people. And I mean, all of a sudden, they could live their whole lives in chronic fear. So they took on, the 7 deadly sins, jealousy and anger and rage and envy and all those things. And we deal with those imperfectly today. We've got the psychologists and psychiatrists, we've got the self-help books, and with all of that, we struggle. They had none of that. We're talking about hunter-gatherers out there living day to day. And all of a sudden, all of this modern psychological baggage is heaped on them. Mark Leary, who is a PhD professor at Harvard, wrote a book, The Curse of Self. And in The Curse of Self, he describes how difficult that period in time was for these early humans. And they were driven to the point of insanity. And in that state, they concocted gods in their head. The god of the crops, the god of the weather, the god of fire, the god of the next tribe over the hill is going to come over and kill all their people. And they worshiped these gods, and they sacrificed or killed their own women and children on altars to try to bribe or appease these gods. Now you can justify that any way you want, but that's insanity. They were driven to insanity by the burden of this modern sense of self-awareness. But, humans always find an opportunity, and some enterprising humans came along, and they said to these people, we see the strain that you're under, we see the pressure that you're under, we can make you safe, and we can make your lives good, and we can make you prosperous and happy. All we need from you is to send a bunch of your young people to us, and we're going to go out here in the desert, and we're going to build these huge pyramids to show the rest of the world how powerful we are. and we're going to need hundreds and thousands more of your young people from your group and every other group around. And we're going to go out maybe for years, and we're going to fight in campaigns to subdue all the people that don't agree with us, and they'll become vassals of our huge, powerful state. And that way we're going to be the most powerful people. And oh, by the way, we're going to need a lot of things that you hunt and gather, because all of this, what I'm telling you, costs a lot of money, and someone's got to pay for all that. But all of that is a small price to pay, because you're going to be happy, you're going to be prosperous, you're going to be safe, and everything is going to be fine. So these early pre-humans in this state of basic insanity agreed to this agreement, let's just say. And if you get nothing else from this presentation today, understand that that event and the responses of our ancestors 20 to 40,000 years ago has led directly to the world we have today. They began the process of this giving away our power, giving away our passion, giving away our freedom to other humans to make choices for us, choices about how we live, how we raise our children, what we eat, how we live. And progressively, this has continued over 20 to 40,000 years, leading up to what we have today. How can we get our peace back? How can we take it back? So I'm an author, I'm a teacher, I've taught at the college level and also in public schools. I've written several books. One of them is entitled The 3 R's. And in the 3 R's, I describe a process for moving back to living in harmony with our human design. The 3 R's are reduce, return, and restrict. Reduce means to reduce the size of governments, and I'm speaking again globally so we can look at any of the larger governments around the world, to reduce the size of those governments to their proper size and role. We're not saying anything negative about governments here. We're just saying to reduce them to the proper size and role. And you might say, well, who decides what that is? What is that? Well, I think we all pretty much know what the proper size and role of government is, because we have words that describe it, and we call the whole process of government, we call them public servants or civil servants. So what we want to do is we want governments to return to being public servants or civil servants. They're serving us. They're serving us with the services that we elect, appoint, pay them to do, and that's all they do. I think most of you viewing would agree that many of the world's large governments have gone somewhat beyond being servants to us. And when that happens, they are stepped out of their proper role. The second R is return. And what return means is that when we reduce the size of these governments to their proper role, we are going to eliminate a huge bureaucracy and billions of dollars that are spent in running these huge machines, and the graft and waste and corruption that goes along with it. And when we do that reduction, there is money freed up that's on the table. And where does that money need to go? It needs to come back to us, because it came from us. It's ours in the first place. We work until June for money we never see every year that goes to some other group to make decisions for us. And when we reduce these other entities, then we need to have that money back in our groups and our communities and our families. So the second R is return. We return that money. Think of how exciting that would be in your community or group to know that as your government is getting back to kind of right size, money is coming back to your community to do the things that your community sees fit. And it may be different than the next community. We all live differently, and that's the way human beings should live. That's absolutely the right way to live. And restrict means simply to cut the umbilical cord between huge overpowering governments and huge for-profit corporations. What we've got going on in the world today is a combination of huge governments and huge corporations in collusion, working together, back and forth, lobbying, bribing, colluding, and together they're making choices for us, all of us globally. They're making choices for food choices and living choices that we don't want, but they have so much money and so much of they have so much of our money and so much of our power that we have just completely lost our voice. So that's the three R's, you know, reduce, return, and restrict. I'm not saying that is the way to do it. That is a way that we could return to living in our natural design. So you might ask yourself, well, as government, they're just going to voluntarily reduce their size and scope? Of course not. So we've got to do this by way of a global grassroots movement where millions of people are united, have a common vision. Then when they have a common vision, they have a voice. And you know something? To return to peace, I don't want to paint the picture that it's simple or that it won't take work or courage, but mechanically it's quite easy and only two things are needed. Number one is unity, and number two is numbers. The numbers are obvious. When we have enough numbers and a voice, big governments, corporations, everybody is going to listen to us because there's nobody big enough to turn down billions of humans when they say they want something. But the unity requires a common vision. So we want you to go to our website and join. So when you join, we're going to contact you. We're going to thank you for joining, and we are going to ask you for your input. We want to know what are the things that you're concerned about, that you want to see in this vision that would make it relevant and important and critical for you in your life and your family and your community that you live in and your culture. And together, we can turn humanity in a completely new direction. I'm so excited. I hope you are just as excited as I am. We look forward to your joining. Together, we're going to move humanity in a new direction and begin this global grassroots movement. Thank you.